Welcome back everyone. Today I'm covering Loretta's sorceries and I see two ways of playing with this. A cheap one where you can obtain everything you need pretty early in the game and you are more agile but with less damage, and an expensive one with more damage but you might feel like a sitting duck. I will cover the expensive one at the end of the video. For this build we are not using strength, endurance, fate and arcane, and we need a few points into mind, the rest going into vigor, dex and intel. For that reason we will settle for the astrologer class. And this is our stats look at level 100. 32 vigor because we are going to let our summons tank and try to deal huge damage from behind. If you are confident in dodging, you can move a few points into dex. 17 mind is enough to cast Loretta's great bow 3 times or Loretta's mastery twice. 9 endurance because we wear light armor and our weapons are not weighting too much. 8 strength because with the great rune active we can wield the weapon without problems. 38 dexterity because we have a few extra points left, so putting them here will increase the casting speed of the spells and the weapons and bow damage a little. 59 intelligence is enough because when we use our buffs we will reach 80, which is the cap, so more points are wasted in this stat. 7 fate and 9 arcane because we don't need these stats. For this build I picked Godric's Great Rune because it provides 5 points into every stat, which makes this build work smoothly at level 100. And here are the stats with the Great Rune active. The staff we use is Lusat's staff. It increases the FP we consume but also raises the damage of our spells, which is very good. With the buffs active it has 413 sorcery scaling. The bow we use is the horn bow. I picked it because it has magic damage and intelligence scaling. A bad one, but we have a lot of points here so it will be fine. We gave it the enchanted shot Ash of War, which fires an arrow that will follow the target. It has pretty good tracking and costs a mere 8 FP. We will use the Stormwing Bone Arrow because it has the highest physical damage out of all arrows and I use it only against magic resistant enemies. Otherwise I use the Dwelling Arrows. They improve the damage of the horn bow by around 5%. When fully buffed, we reach 615 AR. The backup weapon is the glaive with the magic affinity and Loretta / Ash of War. I found myself using this weapon only when I didn't have time to shoot the bow or I didn't want to waste arrows. But its AR when fully buffed is actually amazing, 1103. I don't really fancy the way we look with this headpiece, but the bonus of 6 intel it provides made me swallow my pride. The 9% HP and stamina reduction shouldn't be too bad because we try to avoid the front line at all costs. We also use the spellblade trousers, gloves and armor, but altered. Each piece provides 2% bonus damage to magic skills, so both enchanted shot and Loretta's slash will deal 6% more damage. We have a lot of talismans that we can use with this build, so it's up to you which one you prefer depending on the playstyle you want. If you want to focus more on the spells, you can use Graven Mass, Godfrey Icon, Magic Scorpion Charm and Ritual Sword Talisman, so you can deal maximum damage with them. If you like the Bowman and the Glaive more than the spells, you can use Arrow Sting Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Magic Scorpion Charm and Ritual Sword. Graven Mass will boost the damage of our spells by 8%. Godfrey Icon will improve the charged spells, which we want because we charge ours for maximum damage, and this talisman boosts them by 15%. Magic Scorpion Charm boosts our magic damage by 12%, but we also receive 10% more damage. Ritual Sword Talisman improves our attack by 10% when we are at max HP. Arrow Sting Talisman will improve the damage we deal with the bow by 10%, and the Shard of Alexander will improve our weapon skills by 15%. We only have 2 spells. Loretta's Great Bow will be your best friend for most of the game because you can find it very early. Loretta's Mastery, however, is found very late, but it is the improved version. I personally like to use them at the beginning of the battle after I use the summons or to snipe unaware targets for huge damage. These spells can also be used on horseback wherever using torrent is allowed. They take some time to charge, but if you can do it, it's worth it because the damage they deal will be improved by 22% without Godfrey's icon. For this build I'm using the Albinauric Ashes. They are pretty tanky but they don't deal a lot of damage, but they should keep the enemy aggro just enough so you can charge your spells. They also have a special ice breath which can apply frostbite on enemies. For the Flask of Wondrous Physique, I use the Intelligence Knot tier for the 10 bonus points, which takes us to 80 intel, so we will deal a lot of damage. The other tier is the Magic Shrouding tier, for 20% magic damage bonus, because every source of damage we have contains magic. Both tiers last 3 minutes, so they should be active for the whole fight. Other consumables are the Boiled Crab for the extra damage reduction when we use the spells or the glaive, and the Blood Boiled Aromatic because it provides 30% more physical damage and 20% more stamina for 1 minute. I advise using it only when you run around enemies and hit them with the bow, or even in melee combat if you are 100% sure you can dodge the enemy attacks, because you will take 25% more damage when using it. This will be a problem because we also have little HP, so against endgame opponents you will get one shot. As an alternative, you can use the Exalted Flesh. Here you might want to pick the Prisoner class because it has one extra point that we can transfer from Fate to Strength. We don't modify the stats except Strength and Dex, where we transfer almost all points from Dex to Strength, because we swap the Hornbow with the Greatbow. I picked the Greatbow because I can modify the Ash of War, so I gave it the Rain of Arrows. This Ash of War is great against big enemies or enemies who stay in one place long enough for the arrows to land. Paired with the Shard of Alexander and Blood-Boiled Aromatic, we can deal a lot of damage with the skill. We use Loretta's War Sickle because it has longer reach and is faster, but it has around 30 less AR than the glaive. I call this the expensive build because of the low drop rate of the great arrows. The Golem Magic Arrow is the main type we use, but it's so rare that even respecing to 99 arcane is not worth it. Because of that and the fact that the great bow fires slowly, you might find yourself using the melee weapon more often. From now on, I will rate every build I make based on my experience with it, and then how I think you will do if you improve it with higher levels and other spells or items. There are 3 categories: difficulty, based on how hard it was for me to tackle main bosses; damage, based on how much damage the build is capable of; and versatility, based on how many things the build is good at. For example, melee combat, ranged combat, and magic. So difficulty. Up until the Fire Giant, every boss fell at the first attempt. Because of the high damage he has, every attack was a one shot, except the Fireball. And until I figured what I had to do, I died around 7 to 9 times. When I realized that melee for the first phase and ranged for the second is the way to go, I did it second try. At the Godskin Duo, I died around 8 times because I kept trying to get good footage with the spells and the bow. But when I decided to finally do everything I can to kill them, it took 1 or 2 tries. Maliket was surprisingly easy. I got him second try, but in the first one I'd also tried fancy things, so I died stupidly. But I guess I can say I got him first try, right? No? Okay. Godfrey Shade and Gideon fell at the first attempt, and then Godfrey took quite a few tries until I figured a way to basically start the fight in the second phase. After that, it only took 2 or 3 tries. Redegon and Elden Beast were a nightmare. I died over 30 times to them. One mistake was enough to get myself killed 80% of the times. But I did it in the end. That being said, the difficulty for this build is very hard. Damage with the spells is pretty good for level 180 intel. For the bows, not that great. Rain of Arrows is decent if all the arrows hit the target. As for the melee damage, it could definitely be better, but for a Spellblade build, it is good damage. Overall, we deal high damage. When it comes to versatility, we can do well with our spells, we have an agile bow which can counter attack while dodging, and we are also decent at melee combat. Overall, it's a fun build. Now let's talk about how you will do if you improve the build with more levels and other spells and items. You will certainly have an easier time if you put at least 10 more points into Vigor and a few more into Intel so you can get rid of the headpiece. But it would still be a difficult build to play because of the low damage resistance. Overall, hard difficulty. When it comes to damage, you can use the Terra Magica spell for a lot more spell damage, and spend around 20-30 more points into Strength and Dex to raise the damage of the bow and Loretta's War Sickle. And Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength will certainly raise the damage even higher. Overall, very high damage. And this was the build for Loretta sorceries. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments which playstyle you prefer. This was all for now, see you in the next one.